Uh,
Right, now let's hope you can see my JOSM screen.
yeah.
Okay, no one's saying they can't, so that's a good sign. All right, what I've done is I've uploaded areas where you have all been doing some mapping, and we are going to have a look at that. But the first thing I want to do is I need to be able to decide what I'm looking at. So my screen here in JOSM is a normal screen. All the paths and that are very difficult to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my map paint styles, and I'm going to open the Apple validator. Now, this is one fact about the Apple validator that was not quite clear when you're looking at towns and villages. But when I switch on my Apple validator, all of a sudden you can clearly see which is a path, which is a track. It stands out a lot more when you use the Apple validator. So it gives you extra new way of seeing stuff and identifying quickly. Now I'm going to zoom out because I want you to look at this. One of the problems you are still having is deciding what is and what isn't a track. Now, here we have a formal village, as formal as it gets in the sense that the roads are not formal, but the villages are in their own way properly structured for the area. Now, this is what I find happening, is that roads through the villages are going through the buildings. They're not finding a way through. Now, the one thing that is going to be very, very obvious to you is that there are no motor cars parked anywhere. And that is an obvious sign, and that is something you will see often. So the roads that are there are access roads only. And most of the villagers will be going about their business on foot or on bicycle. And that's something that you must note. So any highways through here or interconnecting routes would probably be paths rather than residential roads. Now I can see that no residential roads were marked and people are confused. You can see this unclassified road comes in, but you have no idea where it goes. Okay. Now, an unclassified road does need to connect, which is what this is doing. It is connecting to the road system, but it stops. And you can see that it should have been not unclassified, but it should have been, this should have been a residential road. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't interconnect. Now, as I see it, it would have come through here, and link up back down here. But there is no road here, okay? It's as such. You need to be able to identify. Now, a route that actually goes through would be this one here. And I can see that that goes through and will connect up here. So this track going through the town is incorrect. Why? You don't have private farmyard means of transport in the town itself. So that is wrong. So look for that. Any track inside a town, you need to investigate. Any unclassified road that stops dead is not unclassified unless it is only the road that brings you to the town. But any other roads should not be unclassified. So please remember that when you are drawing roads. In the countryside, you are getting it better. The unclassified roads, I'm glad to see, are all connecting roads and not short little pieces. And anything going off into farmlands is tracks or paths. So you have got this correct, and well done. The problem here was that someone has been adding fords, but those fords do not, um, uh, these connecting points do not have any tagging to it. So what is it? It's a highway path. A highway path does not need any tags where it crosses a waterway. So while the Apple validator is flagging that, it is not wrong. Okay, please. The Apple validator will flag something where a waterway and a path meet, but don't have a layer. That is incorrect. It should not have a layer because it's at the same level. So don't worry about things like that. You must become more confident in yourself and what you know. I know that it's difficult. It's some things that you look at that other people have drawn and you think, well, is that right? Isn't that right? I'm not quite sure. That is then something for you to ask about. Ask your friends at your coffee chats, ask us on the Slack channel, but please ask, because when you have doubts, that hampers your ability to validate and do other tasks. So please, that is one thing. Right, that's about roads. You've all the validation of roads that you have been drawing is quite good. The accuracy, please understand that roads take on certain shapes. At a bend, there is about 2 nodes to get you around a bend. There's a straight section, then there's another short bend, and then there's a straight section and a straight section. So look at where the bends are and take nodes around the bend and then use straight sections around the corners, right? So please, that gives a much smoother curve and a better line of road. Okay, so that's what the road should look like, as opposed to this sort of thing here. Okay, now that is not quite right here. You see the sharp angle that all of these roads meet at. They do change to a path. However, if those are roads, how does a car get around that corner? So this is something you need to think about, sharp corners. So when roads meet, they should actually link up far better than that. So any road that goes in would, in actual fact, link up slightly angled to come into the road. Think of yourself in a motor car trying to get around a corner like that. It's not quite right. So that's something that you need to think about. Okay, enough of that because of time. Let's get rid of. And just quickly go to another one. Right, this was where you were mapping for waterways and things like that. Now, here is an example that we don't want. Can you see that each little group of buildings has been marked as place isolated dwelling? Now, you can see that that is not correct. These would not have been marked as isolated dwellings, but they probably would have done better being marked as land use farmyard, because you can see the farmlands all here. So these would have been farmyards rather than isolated dwellings. So we really don't want to see all of these places marked as isolated dwellings. So please bear that in mind. We rarely use place isolated dwelling. We rather draw the building and or mark it as a land use farmyard. That's more likely. Now, waterways, you were very good at spotting the main waterways, but what you were not good at spotting was the feeder streams that read into it. Now, on this area, the best thing to do for reader streams is to zoom out. Now, when I zoom out, I start to see that there's a pattern. I can see all of these green lines running down like this. I can see green lines running down through here. Those are streams in the valley. A start to the stream can be something like an alluvial fan like this, where you get a feed in. Now, all of this is erosion into the side of the mountain. So that gives you an idea that this is where a stream starts. The stream will have vegetation along it. So that's a good clue as to where you would be getting a stream running downhill. And it runs through the farmlands and runs into another stream over here. And you can see there's the connecting stream. And then that runs down through here and links up into the main waterway. And there you can see part of the link up into the waterway. Now, sometimes it's very difficult finding the stream when you have farmlands like this. Some of them are rice paddies. So what they do, they run the stream into the rice paddies and fill up the compartmented parcels of land with water for the rice to grow. So the river actually spreads out into the farmland and then back out again afterwards. And that can sometimes be very difficult to spot. Your use of farmland, some of you have been very good at this, and you have outlined very carefully and closely the actual farmland. Now that is very good, rather than just a general outline around the whole thing. Once again, you can see here, the farmland has been done very neatly around the farmlands. That's very good. The waterways, you have all been getting the idea of direction correct. So my hats off to you. That was excellent and very good. One thing that I want to show, I think here, this is not very good. This is rather lazy. This whole area is not natural wood. So I want you to understand that this would be just small pockets of wood that is going down the waterway. In some cases like this, it's not a natural wood, it's more like dense shrub. So you use that as a shrub rather than wood. But that is lazy, and rather not map it like that than give a false idea that the whole thing looks like something like this in here. It doesn't. So please be a bit more careful and a bit more patient when you are doing that. Okay, this person did not notice that this is a waterway running down through here and connecting up to another waterway. So please, when you are doing that, just remember that this tree line also gives an indication that there's a waterway there. Okay, we're running short of time, so I'll drop that off as there. Most of you are very good at buildings, so please continue with that, and please Continue to ask questions. That is important at this time of you starting out validating. And you need to say, oops, how do I handle this, or what do I do with that? Please continue with that. Thank you very much. Back to you, Becky.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ralph, for this. I will.
I think while digitizing, while improving the accuracy of the roads, moving nodes at one time, it takes a lot of time. So I prefer using contour mods plugin. But it gives me a problem that when I upload the changes, it shows deleted instead of moving. Is that a problem or something? And also on another question, when we combine two wedges, let us see, 250 meters wedge are mapped, and we combine them to make a 100-meter way. In this case, also the stats was deleted. So that was, is that a problem or something?
Right. I tend not to rely on automated things because, first of all, the problem is that if the automation was that good, we wouldn't be mapping now because it will all be automated. The problem that I was showing you is alignment with the imagery. And you have to ask yourself, how well does the automation line up with the imagery? So using automated tools to do something is questionable. I'll give you an example. There's a talk at the present moment about the squaring of buildings. And it turns out that inside the computer, in the depth of the computer, when you square a building on your JOSM, it squares it to the 11th decimal place as far as the geographic coordinate is concerned. However, to save bandwidth on the computers, the main servers, this reduces it down to 7 decimal places. So when you call it back, it means that a building that was squared in ID editor comes back onto your JOSM not quite as accurately squared as it was when it was saved. So it converts it from 11 decimal places to 7 decimal places. And what happens then is when you try to use your extrude tool, it leaves a node in a wrong place, or it leaves a little jut out point when you move the side of the building because it's not perfectly squared according to your mapping, because your mapping does it to 11 decimal places. And that has been saved and returned at 7 decimal places. So that is a glitch that the programmers didn't think about. And that is a problem that we have, where we sometimes have to go through squaring a building before we use the extrude tool, because we don't want odd nodes and things like that left behind. So there's an example of just how automated stuff can go wrong. And believe me, it does go wrong. So you still must rely on your own skill a lot more than you rely on machine automation. I'm not against machine automation. I like the squaring tools and all that, but just remember, it is programmed by human beings. Don't believe that this automation is a computer doing everything exactly as it's supposed to. It is programmed by human beings. And those human beings that are doing the programming are programmers. They're not necessarily experienced mappers like yourselves. So please bear that in mind. Okay, back to you.
Thank you, Ralph. Any more questions? Okay, I think the silence means everything is good, right? Aman, okay.